Discover the incredible bond, a PTSD soldier, his K9, and an unexpected twist with a newborn. Jake stood at the edge of his rundown yard, staring into the fading light of a crisp autumn day. The air felt heavy, not just from the chill, but from the weight of memories that haunted him like shadows of war. Max, his loyal K9 companion, nudged against his leg, a warm presence that cut through the frigid silence. Together, they faced the demons that relentlessly clawed at Jake's mind, whispering tales of terror and loss in the quiet corners of his small town in Ohio. He could hear the whispers around him, the judgment from those who didn't understand. Why doesn't he just get a job? What is he doing with that dog instead of getting help? They never knew. They couldn't see the flickers of pain that ignited in his chest every time he stepped outside. The contrast was sharp, the vibrant fall leaves swirling around him, yet life felt gray and lonely. As he knelt to pet Max, he realized how much he relied on the dog, how Max anchored him in this storm of mental turmoil. Yet not all was lost. Emily, his younger sister, had a baby now, a chubby little creature who deserved a world of love, a world that Jake felt too broken to enter. Their estrangement felt as cold as the weather turning. It gnawed at him, driving him deeper into isolation. He could only imagine Emily struggling as a single mother, her weary thoughts emotional echoes of his own battle for peace. If only he could reach out to her, but the chasm felt too wide, too filled with unspoken words and family wounds. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the sun dipped below the horizon, chaos erupted. Max, spooked by something, bolted into the shadows. Panic surged through Jake as he chased after him. Heart pounding, he called out, his voice echoing off the faded buildings surrounding him. In the darkness, other sounds, the low mumbles of townsfolk, the closing of diner doors seemed to conspire against him. He raced through the streets, uncertainty gnawing at him, praying he wouldn't lose the one friend who had kept him tethered to life. His frantic search collided with a realization that stopped him in his tracks. He stumbled upon an old article in a forgotten corner of the town library. It connected Max to Emily's baby, something about service dogs providing emotional support to new parents. The bond between Emily and Max hinted at an unexpected link he had never considered, an intertwining of lives that could embolden him to reconnect. Standing there, breathless and bewildered, Jake faced a crossroads. Could Max be the bridge he needed to cross the gaping chasm back to his sister? Fear gripped him, but so did a flicker of hope, all tangled together in the chilled night air. Would he fight for that bond? Or remain a ghost, fading away into the shadows of his pain? The choice loomed overhead like storm clouds, ready to either burst with rain or recede into serenity. As Jake stood frozen in the library, the weight of the article pressed down on him heavier than any backpack he had carried during deployment. His heart raced, each beat a call to action that echoed louder than the whispers of doubt that usually filled his mind. How was it possible he hadn't seen this connection before? Max had already been his anchor. Now, he could be the reason to reach out, the spark to ignite a long-dormant relationship. He pushed through the door and back into the night, feeling the chill on his skin, but this time it was different. It was a challenge. The darkness seemed less daunting with Max by his side, even if he was still tangled in the shadows of uncertainty. Jake remembered Emily's laugh, the lightness that had always followed her, and the way her eyes lit up when she talked about motherhood. That laughter felt like a distant memory now, buried under layers of regret and fear. His mind raced with what-ifs as he walked. What if Emily rejected him? What if she didn't want to see him? Anxiety coiled tightly in his stomach, yet there was a new urgency pushing him forward. If he wanted to reconnect with his sister and meet her child, he needed to face his fears. Just a few blocks away, he spotted a small light flickering from Emily's bungalow. Through the window, he saw her swaying with the baby in her arms, the gentle movements calming a tiny creature nestled against her shoulder. For a split second, Jake's heart skipped. Was he ready to step back into the life he had distanced himself from? Mac sensed Jake's hesitation, his own tail wagging, encouraging his master. "Okay, buddy," Jake whispered, taking a deep breath and approaching the front door. The old wooden planks creaked under his weight, a haunting reminder of their childhood home. Memories surged, summer afternoons spent running through sprinklers, laughing until they cried, and the scars they now carried, emotional and otherwise. Before he could change his mind, Jake knocked softly. It felt monumental, yet vulnerable. The sound broke the silence of the household. Seconds dragged on like hours, and just as doubt crept in again, the door swung open. Emily stood there, tired yet beautiful, her hair loosely tied and her clothes rumpled, betraying the exhaustion of motherhood. "Jake," her voice was a mix of surprise and disbelief. As the shadow of their past loomed large, her expression shifted, confusion knitting her brow. "What are you doing here?" Jake could hardly find his voice. The weight of unspoken words stung him, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. I saw something today. We need to talk." Emily's eyes flickered over him, taking in the changes that had deeply etched themselves into Jake's face. For a moment, softening tension hung between them, fragile and unsteady like the first stem of a flower breaking through frost. Before he could say more, a tiny wail echoed from inside the house, breaking the fragile moment. Emily's attention shifted instantly, and a smile broke like dawn over her features, a shift that made Jake's chest tighten in an unexpected way. The distance, the years of silence, they all felt irrelevant in the presence of that innocent cry. "Come in," she said, glancing back into the warmth of the home. "She's just a little fussy." As Jake followed her inside, Max brushed against Emily's leg, his presence a sign of solidarity. Could this really be the start of mending what had once been broken? He stepped across the threshold, aware that everything could change in an instant. The vibrant room inside felt alive, bursting with colors and the smell of baby powder, a stark contrast to the gray he's lived in. Would this be the moment that turned their lives around, or just another reminder of all that he had lost? Jake's heart thudded, anticipation mixing with the fear of what lay ahead. Could he finally open up more than he had ever dared to before? As he caught a glimpse of the baby, swaddled snugly in her blanket, he knew he had a choice to make. He glanced at Emily, who was looking at him with cautious hope, awaiting what he had to say. Would he step deeper into this new world they could create together, or shrink back into the shadows? The answer was teetering on the edge, and he could feel it in the air, crackling with possibilities. Jake took a moment to soak in the joy radiating from Emily as she cooed at the baby. The room felt suddenly small yet expansive. It was filled with potential that buzzed like electricity. He reached out, drawn to the tiny human who had effortlessly woven their fates back together. "Is she?" he began, his voice soft, unsure whether he should delve too deeply, too quickly. "Her name is Lily," Emily replied, adjusting the blanket over the baby's tiny feet. "She was born a few months ago." "I've been busy." Jake finished for her, unable to mask the bitterness in his tone. He silently cursed himself for how quickly his emotions swayed. "I should have been here." "No," Emily said, her voice firm but gentle. "You were living your life, Jake. We all have our paths to take." But he felt a weight in those words, like the distance they had both traveled had carved a canyon between them. The need to bridge that gap surged again, spurred by the realization that his sister was alive and thriving, even if he had missed it all. "Can I hold her?" Jake blurted out, the words tumbling from his lips before he could second-guess himself. Emily blinked, clearly surprised. "You want to?" Swallowing hard, he nodded. "Yeah, I think I'd like that." She hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face before passing the baby over with careful hands. The instant Lily settled in his arms, Jake felt a rush of warmth. Her weight was light, and he marveled at how something so small could fill such a cavernous emptiness inside him. He gazed down at her tiny features, delicate lips, wispy hair, and eyebrows that seemed to dance. "Hey, little one," he whispered, almost in disbelief at the softness of his own voice, "it's your Uncle Jake." A cooing sound escaped Lily's lips, and a rush of warmth enveloped Jake like the first sunshine after a long winter. He was lost in this moment, the fears temporarily slipping away into the margins of his thoughts. But as any joy does, the reality of their situation slipped back in like a shadow. The seriousness of the past loomed behind them. The silence in the room thickened, and suddenly, Jake felt the weight of every unspoken word. "I haven't been a good brother to you," he finally admitted, voice rough with emotion. "It's okay," Emily interrupted, her hand resting on his arm. "You did what you had to do. I understand. It's just different now." The vulnerability in her eyes mirrored his own. "I want to be here now," he said, meeting her gaze with sincerity. "I want to know who you are. Who she is. I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me." The flicker of hope returned to Emily's face, but it was mixed with something deeper, fear, perhaps. Jake could sense it. He knew that trust, too, would take time. Years of silence could not dissolve in mere moments. "Do you really mean that?" she asked, the tremor in her voice revealing her ongoing uncertainty. "Yeah, I do," he replied, the conviction solidifying in his chest. "I'm tired of hiding, Emily. I want to heal. Maybe we can help each other," she said softly, a fragile smile breaking through her worried expression. Just then, Max thumped his tail against the floor, a dog's instinctive need to comfort filling the room. Jake smiled at the dog, but the peace was short-lived as a knock on the door interrupted the moment. It was loud, insistent, and the abruptness sent a ripple of tension through them. Emily frowned, glancing at the door. Who could that be at this hour? Jake's heart raced anew. Who would come to disrupt this fragile moment just as he was beginning to believe in new beginnings? Uncertainty flooded back in, casting a shadow over the sunlight they had just found. Would this intrusion fracture what had just started to heal? Jake's pulse quickened as Emily moved to answer the door. What lay on the other side could change everything again. As the doorknob turned, he braced himself for an outcome he had no control over. Would it bring them closer, or pull them apart once more? In the pause that followed the creaking door, Jake held his breath, waiting for the next twist in a story that was only just beginning. The door swung open, and there stood Peter, Jake's old friend from their service days. The moment felt unreal, like a pop of firework amidst the tranquility. His broad shoulders and chiseled features betraying no hint of the emotion he must have been wrestling with. "Hey, man. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Peter's voice trailed off as his eyes darted from Jake to Emily and the baby in his arms. Jake felt a wave of conflicting emotions crash over him. Relief mixed with an unwelcome tension. "Peter," he managed, forcing a smile that felt too strained. "What are you doing here?" "I just heard, well, you know how rumors spread, thought I'd check in." Peter stepped inside, the warmth of the living room contrasting sharply with the chill of unresolved feelings outside. "Wow, is this Lily? She's beautiful." His eyes lit up as he leaned over to take a closer look. Emily nodded, a slight smile dancing on her lips, happiness momentarily resurrected. "Thank you. She was born a few months ago." Jake watched as Peter's demeanor shifted, admiration sketching lines of respect on his face. "You're lucky, man. Family matters, especially after everything." The sentence hung, remnants of their shared past lingering thick in the air. Jake sensed Emily stiffen slightly at the mention of everything. Her eyes flickered between them, a dance of confusion and concern. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady, yet it trembled like a leaf in the wind. Peter hesitated, guilt flashing across his features. "Just you know how it is. War changes people. Sometimes you need your loved ones close after. Yeah, I get it." Jake cut in sharply, a surge of irritation boiling beneath his skin. He felt exposed, like opening a wound in front of a stranger. He shot a glance at Emily, wanting to protect the fragile bubble they had built just moments ago. Peter held up his hands in a placating gesture. "I didn't mean to, it's fine." Jake's voice was colder than intended, but he could feel the unease rising between them. "Let us focus on the present," Emily interjected, brushing her hair back behind her ear. "How about some coffee? We can catch up." As if tethered by the tension that had scrapped the warmth from the room, Jake frowned. He had wanted to connect, to embrace this new path forward, but now he felt drawn back into a world he thought he had left behind. "I don't think I'm really up for coffee," he muttered before he could stop himself. "Jake," Emily whispered, concern etched into her features, "it's okay. It's just a chat." But the chat turned to questions, as Peter began recounting war stories, flashes of laughter under a grim shadow. Story after story, Jake listened, the tales a double-edged sword that both comforted and reopened old wounds. He noticed Emily leaning forward, interest peaking, while Jake felt himself pushing back. "Do you think you're ready to talk about it?" Peter asked at one point, eyes piercing into Jake's, holding a deeper understanding. "I don't know if I want to," Jake replied, frustration knotting his stomach. Peter nodded slowly, understanding the resentment of ghosts long dead. "That's okay, just know that we're here for you." Jake clenched his jaw, forcing back the swell of emotions threatening to spill over. He glanced at Emily, her brow furrowed, and then to Lily, sound asleep despite the chaos around her. In this tangled moment, he felt the stark contrast of joy and pain. Could he really bridge the chasm of past and present? Did he even deserve to? The worry gnawed at him, the uncertainty lingering like a heavy storm cloud, but then, an unrelenting urgency gripped him. "I want to make things right, with you, with us, but what if I can't?" The confession escaped him like a whisper in a tempest, no longer able to shield his heart from the truth. The room fell silent, and in that quiet, palpable moment, he felt something shift within him. "What if you could?" Peter finally asked, tilting his head, and the question hung thick in the air like an unanswered prayer. Jake swallowed hard, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. As he looked at the faces around him, he knew he had a choice to make. A decision that could shape everything moving forward. Suddenly, a gentle coo from Lily broke the silence, and all eyes turned to the baby. In that instant, a new flicker of hope ignited a flicker Jake longed to chase. "Let us start over," he said, the resolve growing in his chest like a sunrise unfurling after a long night. Would facing the past lead to the acceptance he craved? Or would it push them all further apart? As laughter spilled forth from Peter and Emily, an unexpected warmth flickered to life. But deep down, Jake knew this was only the beginning of a battle he had yet to win. As laughter cascaded from Peter and Emily, Jake felt a strange tension ease just slightly in the air. But the warmth of the moment was tinged with uncertainty. He glanced at Lily, her tiny fingers curled gently around his hand. In that small gesture, he found a refuge, yet the shadows of his past loomed persistently nearby. "Starting over sounds good," Peter said, the corners of his mouth lifting, but Jake noticed the flicker of concern in his eyes. "But remember, it's not just about the beginning. It's about what we do from here." Jake nodded, though apprehension tightened his throat. "I want to be there for you both, for her." The words came out heavier than intended. He meant it, but the thought of exposing himself to that vulnerability weighed like an anchor. Emily stepped closer, brushing Jake's arm with her hand, her touch grounding him. "We can do this together, Jake," she said softly. "Whatever you're carrying, we're in this with you." But could he really let them in? The past felt like a prison, the walls built with reminders of things he wished to forget. He had seen too much, felt too deeply, and there was a safety in isolation that called to him. "Let us talk about some light stuff first," Jake suggested, hoping to steer clear of the uncomfortable truths. "What have you been up to, Peter?" "Actually, I brought something," Peter said, diving back into his own backpack. He pulled out a framed photograph. "I thought you might like to see this." He handed it over, and Jake squinted at the image. A group of soldiers posed in front of a dusty barracks, smiles plastered across their faces. They looked so carefree, so alive, echoes of a person he barely recognized anymore. Jake traced the outline of a younger face, one that used to be full of ambition and naivete. "Mark did always know how to lighten the mood," Peter remarked fondly, glancing at the photo. "His pranks were legendary." Jake felt the corners of his lips twitch, as laughter bubbled up, a hesitant ripple. "I remember the time he but just like that," the memory jolted him. Uninvited, the darker moments crashed in, memories of chaos and loss flooding his mind. He quickly shook his head, trying to clear it. "Everything's fine," he said, forcing a laugh that felt brittle. Emily's keen gaze pierced him, searching. "Jake, it's okay to not be okay," she murmured. "We can talk about it if you're ready." "I'm here." Taking a deep breath, he felt the urge to confide in her, to unspool the tangled ball of emotions that had wound tighter than a drum. Just as he opened his mouth, about to share the weight he carried, there was a sudden yelp, a flash of movement behind him. Jake turned just in time to see Lily's mobile begin spinning, creating a soft whirl of colors and music. The sound flooded the room, blissful innocence knitting them momentarily into a shared joy. "It's magic, isn't it?" Peter said, a smile spreading across his face as he watched the baby giggle at the dancing shapes. Jake smiled, too. In that moment, he felt something shift. Was it possible to allow this kind of light back into his life? Could he finally step out from the shadows? He focused on Emily's unwavering look. "What if I told you," he started, but the words hung in the air, hesitant and fragile. Before he could finish, the door creaked open, revealing another unexpected visitor, Jake's old K9 partner, Max. The silver-furred dog bounded in, tail wagging wildly, as if he somehow sensed the shifts in the room. Just as Jake felt happiness blossom with Max's arrival, he realized that the warmth of today could also slip easily into deeper truths tomorrow. "Max," he said, laughter mingling with a hint of anxiety. "Guess we should have a proper welcome." But as he reached for Max, a shiver of dread traveled through him. The past was never too far away, and this moment of joy could just as easily give way to the haunting reminders layered beneath. Feeling everyone's eyes on him, Jake's heart raced. How could he reconcile the happiness of now with the burdens he carried? Would sharing his story help stitch the fabric of their lives together, or would it unravel completely? As the laughter around him faded and uncertainty crept back in, Jake knew the time was coming to confront his demons. Could he face both his past and a hopeful present? He took a deep breath, ready to make that leap. But then the phone rang, slicing through the air like a knife, and everyone turned toward it, uncertainty weaving thick again. What news awaited them on the other end? Would it draw them closer or push them apart? The phone kept ringing, a relentless interrogation that shattered the fragile peace. Jake's heart pounded louder with each chime, a reminder of the uncertainty that filled the space. He could see worry flit across Emily's face, her lips pressed tightly together. Should someone answer it? Peter asked, breaking the silence, his brow furrowed. Jake hesitated, glancing at Lily, who was oblivious to the tension, her bright eyes fixed on Max as he bounced closer, tail wagging. The dog's energy seemed to breathe life back into the room, but Jake felt a weight settle on his chest. What if it was news he wasn't ready for? "Go ahead and get it," Emily urged softly, her voice steady. "We can handle whatever it is together." Taking a deep breath, Jake reached for the phone on the coffee table, his fingers trembling slightly. He hesitated again before answering, the dread coiling tighter in his stomach. "Hello?" His voice was husky, a reflection of the turmoil inside him. "Jake?" came the voice on the other end, an old acquaintance he hadn't heard from in years. It was Sergeant Tompkins, the one person who still kept touch after everything fell apart. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Not at all, Jake replied, trying to keep his tone even, but a knot formed in his throat. What is going on? I just wanted to check in, see how you were doing, Tompkins continued, but Jake could hear the hesitation. We've got some news that might concern you. The laughter in the background faded into silence, the room's atmosphere thick with anticipation. News? Jake's stomach flipped, an instinctive reaction to the weight of the word. What kind of news? It's about Mark. Some of the fellas and I have been meeting. We think it's time we share stories, about the past and how it's impacted us, Tompkins said, his voice suddenly heavy. But it's also about something that happened recently, something you need to know about. Lily cooed, reaching for Max, who sniffed her tiny fingers. Jake couldn't help but smile at the innocence, feeling torn between warmth and the chill creeping over him from the line. Can this wait? Jake asked, wishing he could push the conversation aside. I'm in a moment with friends, Jake. The sergeant's voice turned serious. This isn't something that can wait. It's important for you, for all of us. You need to be part of this discussion. A pulse of fear coursed through Jake. He felt the familiar darkness inch closer, whispering accusations of failure and regret. They were reminders of what he had buried deep inside. As he listened, the laughter in the living room felt distant, like echoes in a tunnel he was trying to escape. I'll be there as soon as I can, Jake said, feeling the weight of his own words. There was no escaping the past, no way to outrun the shadows. That he ended the call, staring at the phone as if it were a snake poised to bite. What was that about? Peter asked, his voice laced with concern. It's complicated, Jake replied, swallowing hard. Emily stepped closer, her expression one of empathy and concern. Complicated how? Tompkins wants to talk about Mark, about everything that happened. I think it's about time. Jake turned away from them, the doubt pulling him under. But I don't know if I'm ready to dive back into those waters. Max nudged his leg, sensing Jake's distress, and he reached down to stroke the soft fur. It's okay to feel scared, Emily reassured him, her voice gentle yet firm. This is a part of healing. You're not alone in this. Not anymore. Jake looked up, meeting Emily's steady gaze. Her words offered a lifeline, but the fear of what awaited him loomed larger. Could he really face the tide of memories, knowing that danger still lurked within? Maybe it's time to face it all, Jake breathed, though uncertainty gnawed at him. He gathered his resolve, knowing the connection with friends and family could be his strongest armor against the inevitability of his past, but as he took a step forward, emotions swirling like a storm inside, he felt something shift in the atmosphere. Jake's phone buzzed again, the device vibrating against the table. Another call? Or perhaps a message. He picked it up, heart racing faster than before. What new revelation awaited him this time? Would it bring healing, or push him even further from the fragile hope he had begun to build? Jake stared at the buzzing phone in his hand, the screen lighting up with a name that sent a jolt of electricity through him. Mom. It was unexpected and brought a rush of memories, the good and the painful ones. He had to make a choice, to answer and risk opening old wounds, or let it ring and shield himself from whatever conversation awaited. Taking a shaky breath, he accepted the call. Hey, Mom. Jake, I wasn't sure you'd pick up. Her voice quivered, and he could sense the weight of unspoken words. I just saw the news. I thought you should know. What news? Jake managed, his gut twisting. The world outside his bubble of warmth was still cold and indifferent, threatening to pull him under. About the investigation. There was a pause, heavy with what remained unsaid. I read they might be bringing some files back to light. The things Mark was involved in. The words hit Jake like a punch to the gut. Memories flooded back, the nights filled with anger, fear, and guilt. I didn't want you to worry about that. Worrying is part of being a mother, she replied softly, her voice trembling. I know you carry that burden, honey. It's okay to accept that it's hard. He felt the warmth of Emily's presence nearby, smiling at him with encouragement. Max snuggled closer, as if sensing the tender weight of the moment. Jake could almost hear the thudding heartbeats of those he loved echoing in the room, but this call felt so distant. So fragile. Do they have new information? He pressed, feeling the walls close in, darkness whispering doubts as he braced himself for the answer. It could change everything, she said, her voice small. I just don't want you to face whatever comes alone. Caught on the edge of vulnerability, Jake swallowed down the lump in his throat. I'm not alone. I have Emily, Peter there in my corner. But you know this one to be easy. I know. Another pause. And I'm proud of you, always. Just remember, it's okay to lean on us. Don't shut us out again. The gentle insistence in her words reached him. He could feel the deep love and concern flowing from her in waves, crashing against the barriers he had built. I won tea, he murmured, then ended the call. Lily's laughter broke through the tension, contagious enough to lighten the mood just a bit. He turned towards the others, grateful for their presence. I might need to decipher some of this with you all. After everything I thought I left behind, whatever happens next, we face it together, Peter said, nodding solemnly, solidarity anchoring his voice. Emily stepped closer, weaving her fingers through his. In that small act, warmth spread in Jake's chest, reminding him of the safety he felt in their bond. But even as he felt a flicker of hope, a wave of dread gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. Would the truth pull them closer, or would it unravel everything they had fought to build? Just then, a notification pinged on his phone again, this time, a new message from an unknown number. His pulse quickened, and he hesitated before swiping to unlock it. What more awaited him with the tap of a screen? Was it an invitation to confrontation, or perhaps a call for help? As he caught sight of the words flashing across the screen, cold dread washed over him. What if this was the moment everything changed again? Jake's heart raced as his eyes scanned the message displayed before him. The cold words on the screen felt almost insurmountable. I know where Mark is. We need to talk. A chill shot down his spine. The name Mark dragged up a tidal wave of emotions, crashing over him like a relentless storm. Memories of laughter turned to anger, moments of brotherhood twisted into unbearable pain. He felt Emily's hand tighten around his, her warmth anchoring him in the turmoil. Who is it? She asked softly, her voice laced with concern. I don't know. He hesitated, torn between the urge to find out more and the instinct to protect his family from whatever lay ahead. It's about Mark. The air thickened. Peter leaned in closer, curiosity etched on his face. What did they say? Jake's finger hovered over the screen, still processing the reality of the words. They claim they know where he is. I can't shake the feeling this is a setup. We need to be smart about this, Peter advised, the intensity in his gaze unyielding. Don't reply right away. Let us think it through. Nodding, Jake drew a breath, attempting to steady the whirlwind in his head. But dread twisted in his gut. What if this was the chance he'd been waiting for? A chance to confront the past, maybe find closure, or even worse, to reopen wounds that had barely healed. Emily squeezed his hand again, grounding him. You don't have to go alone. Whatever you decide, we're with you. Jake looked around at the faces that were his lifeline, their concern palpable. It was this support that made the fight worth it, but the burden loomed heavy. What if this leads to something dangerous? What if I pull you all into something we can't control? Then we face it together, Peter reiterated, a bold determination coloring his voice. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Was he ready for this? The idea of facing the past terrified him, but the thought of hiding, of letting fear dictate his choices, was equally daunting. Okay, he finally said, summoning a courage he wasn't sure existed. Let us sit down and figure out a plan. But I'll need full transparency. Everyone needs to know what we're stepping into. As the group settled in, sharing ideas and voicing their fears, Jake felt a small sliver of hope rise within him. Maybe, just maybe, this was the opportunity they all needed. Not just to confront Mark, but to reclaim pieces of himself that had been lost in the chaos of the last few years. He sent a careful reply to the unknown number, agreeing to meet. The choice had been made, and now there was no turning back. But as he hit send, a sudden knot tightened in his stomach. What if Mark wasn't the only shadow lurking in the past? The haunting implications of everything they had been through now felt more pronounced than ever. Had they truly put everything to rest? Before he could linger too long in his doubts, Max nudged him, urging Jake's attention away from the spiraling thoughts. He smiled at the faithful companion, the bright glimmer of hope in his life. "Okay, buddy," he said softly, the uncertainty hanging in the air. "Let us see where this leads us." As Jake turned back to his friends, he felt a mix of apprehension and anticipation. The next few hours could change everything for better or worse. One thing was certain, the stakes had never felt higher. The weight of the decision settled on his shoulders heavy, but as he looked to his family gathered around him, he knew they were ready for this fight. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was waiting to emerge. And as his phone buzzed again, a new message lighting up the darkness, a voice whispered inside him, warning him that this confrontation might hold more than just closure. It could also unearth secrets meant to stay buried, secrets that could reshape everything he thought he understood about his past. The next day dawned gray and heavy, a perfect reflection of the storm brewing inside Jake. He couldn't shake the feeling that their decision was just the tip of an iceberg. Darker waters awaited just below the surface. As he paced around the living room, Max followed closely, tail wagging, sensing Jake's unrest. Jake scratched the dog's ears absent-mindedly, drawing comfort from the familiar warmth. Max had been his constant companion through thick and thin, and right now, he was the anchor in a stormy sea of uncertainty. Emily and Peter had suggested a morning hike to clear their heads, but the idea felt too peaceful for what loomed ahead. He needed action, a diversion. "You guys go ahead. I think I'm going to stay back and check a few things," he said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Jake, you can't just sit here and stew. We need to stick together," Emily urged, concern flickering across her face. "It's fine. I just need to sort through some stuff," he replied, dismissing her worries with a wave of his hand. Once they left, however, the walls closed in. He grabbed his phone, staring at the screen as if it would offer him some answers. The text from the unknown number loomed large, taunting him. Taking a deep breath, he hit the contact icon, preparing to do some digging. Moments later, he was scrolling through social media in search of any clues about Mark's last known whereabouts. Every post felt like a breadcrumb from a life he thought he'd buried deep. But with every click, a piece of his heart began to fracture all over again. Memories flooded back, fiery arguments, desperate pleas, and the painful choices he had made. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Peter's head popped in. "You're not going to believe this," he blurted out, eyes wide with energy, cutting through Jake's haze. "What?" Jake straightened up, feeling a spark ignite within him. "Emily just heard from someone, an old friend of Mark's. They said they spotted him last week outside the city." Jake's heart raced. That's big news. "Did they say where?" "Not exactly, but they think he's been getting mixed up with some rough crowds." Jake clenched his fists, anger bubbling up. "Of course he is. It's the only way he knows how to cope," he muttered. But mixed in with that anger was another feeling, a flicker of hope, a chance to finally understand, to confront the haunting questions that had buried him. "Are you ready for this?" Peter asked quietly, sensing the tumult brewing within Jake. Jake inhaled deeply. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "I feel like I've been trying to run away from my past. Maybe facing it head-on is the only way I can find peace." Peter nodded, understanding etched on his face. Then we need to act fast. If he's in trouble, we can't leave him out there. But we have to be prepared. We don't know who or what we're dealing with. Jake straightened up, his resolve hardening. Let us get the others. A plan is better than just sitting here waiting. As they gathered their friends, anticipation thrummed in the air. Each of them brought their own fears and hopes, an unspoken bond, ready to face whatever came next. Just as the group started brainstorming, Jake's phone buzzed again, the familiar ping slicing through the tension. With a shared anticipation, they all turned towards him. What now? Peter asked, glancing at the screen. Jake's pulse quickened as he read the new message. It's from the same number, he replied, voice barely above a whisper. Meet me at the old pier tonight, it read. Come alone if you want the truth. A heavy silence washed over the room. Jake felt that same knot tighten in his stomach, but this time it was mixed with a rush of adrenaline. The truth. What that really meant felt terrifying. But he couldn't back down now. Emily stepped forward, determination flashing in her eyes. You're not going alone, Jake. Not after everything that's happened. He turned to face her, wrestling with the need to protect them versus the desire to uncover the truth. But I have to, this is my fight. What if it's a trap? She countered, gripping his arm. In that moment, Jake realized something vital. Just as he couldn't run away from the past, he also couldn't face it alone. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows in their living room, Jake felt the burden shift ever so slightly. Maybe he was finally ready to uncover those buried secrets. But with every revelation could come new dangers. What awaited him at the pier? Was this really the truth he had been seeking, or another twist meant to unravel him completely? Jake stood at the edge of the old pier, his heart thundering like a drum in his chest. The once cheerful sounds of seagulls and the rhythmic lapping of water against the shore now felt like ominous whispers. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue across the surface of the water, almost beautiful, but the tension gripping him was undeniable. Max stayed close at his side, sensing the change in his owner's energy. Jake crouched down, resting a hand on the dog's head, gathering courage from the steady companionship. You ready for this, buddy? He murmured. Max wagged his tail, as if to reassure him that he wasn't alone. The message had felt like a punch to the gut. Come alone if you want the truth. But remembering Emily's determined expression, he knew he couldn't keep her or anyone else out of this. They had already shown him that he wasn't alone anymore, and this was a moment to prove that to himself. The footsteps approached behind him, and he turned to see Emily, Peter, and his old K9 sergeant stepping onto the pier, their faces marked with concern but also fierce determination. You didn't think we'd let you do this alone, did you? Peter said, his brow knitted tightly. Jake sighed, feeling the warmth of their support wash over him. I wasn't sure if I wanted to expose you guys to whatever this could come to. He raked a hand through his hair, raw nerves bubbling with each word. Too late, Emily whispered, her voice steady. We're here now. They moved closer to the edge of the pier, scanning the water for any sign of movement. The air was thick with anticipation, the last bits of daylight fading. A shadowy figure appeared at the far end, just beyond where the sunlight penetrated, cloaked in darkness. Jake's pulse quickened as he spotted the figure. Could it really be Mark? Stay alert, Jake warned, resentment and longing fighting within him. As the figure drew closer, Jake could see the familiar face, weathered and worn, but unmistakable. Mark halted a few feet away, his expression standing somewhere between fear and relief. Jake, he said, voice cracking under the weight of their shared past. Mark. The name rolled off Jake's tongue like a stone. It brought back memories: brotherhood, loss, pain, and a flicker of hope. What is going on? Why are you here? I had to show you something. Things have unraveled since we last spoke, Mark said, regret flooding his features. I need your help. Jake fought against the impulse to shove him away, breathing through the instinctive anger churning in his gut. Help? Are you serious? You disappeared, left us in the dark. I know. Just listen, please. Mark stepped forward, vulnerability etched on his face. There are things happening, things I never disclosed. It's about the investigation and you deserve to know everything. Something in Mark's voice broke through the wall. Jake exchanged glances with his friends, sensing their collective resolve to understand. What do you mean? There were files. Things we didn't talk about. Dangerous people involved. I thought I could handle it, but I can't anymore. I'm running from them. They could hurt you too. Mark stepped closer again, desperation flickering in his eyes, fear clashed with anger inside Jake. Why should I trust you? He demanded, fists clenched. You left us to deal with the fallout all by ourselves. I was scared, Jake. Scared for you, for everyone. But I regret that cowardice now. Mark paused, voice thick with emotion. I need you to believe me. There are people looking to settle scores. Jake felt a wave of conflicting emotions washing over him, old bonds fighting against old wounds. Could he really trust Mark again after everything? Why show up now? He asked, voice steady but low. What made you come back? Mark took a deep breath. After everything, I realized I have to face the truth. I lost sight of what home meant. I lost the right to expect your forgiveness, but I'm begging for it now. I still care about you, Jake. Jake opened his mouth, wanting to shout, to lash out, but the look in Mark's eyes disarmed him. You care? After everything? You think you can just saunter back into our lives and act like nothing happened? Mark's shoulders slumped. I've been searching for redemption. I want to reconnect and do what I can to help fix this mess. If you'll let me. Jake's heart raced as he felt the crack in his facade. The scars of the past ached anew, but he glanced at Emily and Peter, resolute in their solidarity. Perhaps there was a path forward, even in uncertainty. Let us talk, Jake finally said, his voice firm but open, but we need a plan. If there are people after you, we'll protect each other, but we have to be smart about this. As the shadows deepened around them, a new sense of purpose sparked in Jake, ignited by the warmth of unwavering support. They could face this together, he felt it in his bones. Mark nodded, relief flooding his expression. I'll tell you everything. They spent the night hatching plans and talking about their past, weaving their stories together again in hopes of moving forward. Moments of laughter mingled with memories, creating a fragile bond that felt just like the old ones, yet different enough to hold the hope they could start anew. The past would always be a part of them, but it no longer had to define them. Jake opened up, allowing the tide of secrets held inside to spill out, the burdens slowly lifting with each word. Among shared fears and hopes, they built something worth fighting for. In the dawn of a new day, as the first light broke over the water, they formed a united front against the dark, ready to face whatever came next. Together, now is the time to jump on board. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will captivate your heart and mind. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference more than you know. Comment below and share your thoughts. How did this ending resonate with you? We love hearing from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Your support means the world. Let us build this community together.